Today, going to the hardest category, ourselves. We tend to think in Brahma Vihara practices, the enemy's the hardest, thinking outer enemies. But as I said the other night, we're all very good at making ourselves inner enemies. And because of the inner warfare that can be there inside, and all the attachment about ourselves, this is a very difficult category to cultivate equanimity, even without those inner battles. It's completely natural that we're most attached to this being more than any other being, more than anything else in the world. Really, I mean, I'm not joking. And the identification with this mind and body, because we tend in conventional life, of course, to think of it as I, me, that really highlights the challenge. Even if we have a quite deep Vipassana understanding, there is still the conventional sense of there's somebody here, and that somebody needs to be protected and defended at all costs. Remember the text I read from the Samyutta Nikaya of how attachment ends up building barriers and walls and defenses. That's exactly it. We're very defended. This is the ego's main job. Defense and acquisition and protection. The ego has nothing to do with happiness. And it takes some time to come to the deep understanding of that. Kindness. Understanding we have habits that have been cultivated for protection, or in order to have some feeling of stability and safety in this world that is not stable or intrinsically safe. It is the nature of all things to be empty of stability. One of the reasons the equanimity practice is so challenging is it guides the mind repeatedly to that wisdom of no control. If you've been experiencing a lot of difficulty this week, a lot of restlessness this week, it may not be about the stories the restlessness is telling you. This practice brings us to this existential place of, oh my, there's no control here. But unlike Vipassana, with a wider angle view. So that wider angle view is challenging in a whole new way than we're used to in the Vipassana practice. In this practice, we're reminded category by category, oh, these beings, this person in this other category, what they say, what they do, I can't control that. But Kamasaka, that's not so hard as compared to this being here. Whatever will arise in the next moment happens because of causes and conditions, and there's not any control over what arises in each moment. Oh no. That's a lot more scary. Please don't worry, you won't disappear. I actually don't mean that as a joke. We'll be fine, all of us. A lot happier, in fact, because there's less clinging. We still live our conventional lives, but we understand that this whole mass of mind and body is simply there because of causes, conditions, and karma, and we're doing the best we can. And given the many ways we can spend a life, every single one of us is doing really well. If you're here for a week cultivating equanimity as opposed to getting sucked into all the other things we can get sucked into, that says a lot about the strength of mind and your priorities. sitting with all the restlessness, all the difficulties of this week, and you're still here. The main challenge of this category is, of course, not who to choose. That's pretty obvious. But how to hold this being, who we call I, me, and mine. Remembering that this is a Brahma-vihara practice, not a wisdom practice per se, not specifically a wisdom practice. So yes, it is, we are cultivating wisdom, but in a conventional I'm having a hard time describing what I mean, in a context that is conventional. So there is this conventional world. It does exist. It's not to be clung to, but it definitely exists. So may this person here and now, with a name and a history, be at ease no matter what. That's the metta. That's easier to understand than this being kamasaka. What we're basically doing is we're reminding ourselves again and again and again that whatever we think, whatever we say, whatever we do arises because of causes and conditions and karma. None of that is personal, even if it feels so. And any clinging on account of that or aversion on account of that is extra, and it's suffering. So that reminder, moment to moment to moment, is actually, when we take it in the way that it's meant, it's very steadying, because it reminds us about what seeds do we want to plant right now. Yeah. In this very moment, what do we want to do? And in this very moment, what do we want to say? And is this in accord with Kamasaka? Are these seeds actually seeds that we want to plant, or is this just old habit? The only thing we're responsible towards is this moment, acting and speaking in ways that feed the wholesome. And of course, all that comes from thought. So cultivating thought that is in that direction, we do the best we can. And then, so let's cultivate that for ourselves. And really, before you begin with the phrase, settle into this body and mind as they are right now. And then once you have a real sense of being grounded in yourself with awareness, then begin the Upekkha practice. Remembering that this is essentially a meditation hall, so if you need to move or leave for any reason, please turn off your screen before you do. Grazie a tutti. Thank you, everybody, for your practice. Grazie a tutti per la vostra pratica. So who has questions? Anybody? Francesca, please.
Yesterday, you said to forgive our imperfection. And this has been of great relief. but at the same time, the concern is accepting our imperfection, forgiving it, does not bring to rest in it. There's no risk to stay calm, to stay longer in this imperfection.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Suzuki Roshi, who's a Zen Roshi, a Japanese Zen Roshi who lived in San Francisco, said it probably best. So I lean on him. He said, "You're perfect just the way you are, and you can use a little improvement." So it's that tension of opposites that we inhabit. We cannot control what is arising or what the mind is, what is coming into the mind at the moment. There's that imperfection. However, we can influence future arisings. So there's a surrender to things just as they are, as imperfect as they are, and using the wisdom of that understanding to constantly incline to what is wholesome, skillful, and useful, so that the future will come from that. Does that answer your question, Francesca? So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Lorena.
I would like to share that while practicing now, there was this continuous alternation in between metta sentence and Upekkha sentence, so that it was more possible to stay with like myself as a category in a more kind way, let's say, in terms of acceptance. And what I can notice is like the hardest part is really to accept there's no control, but at the same time, and if it is easier to understand, refer to the others, it's harder to understand it, refer to myself. But this absence of control, and meanwhile repeating the sentence with this part of ownership, like I'm the owner of my actions, gives to me so much responsibility about that each time to choose. So it means all the time constantly trying to address and incline to awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So it's about the reflection to share.
Grazie. Christina, please.
So I would like to refer that all of a sudden, when you were like telling us to start with ourselves as a category, all the body became stiff and rigid, and even stiffness at the jaws.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was so strong. And compared to that, thinking about the yesterday's category felt like easy, really easy. So I could invite this person for lunch. And then I realized that it really doesn't matter about the category, because it's all about ideas about this person, that person, who is the enemy, the difficult one, the dear one. So everything manifests in this very moment, but all the rest is about ideas, thinking, and so on.
Perfect. Grazie. Alberto, please.
So the question I have is about clarifying on this expression, dependent on. So what is it really about? Because should we take it as like a chain of things happening, and then there is this, and then there is that? So does it mean even what I'm thinking, what I'm acting, whatever is dependent on something else, and it's like coming, like manifesting all together as a consequence of something else.
Conditionality is really complicated. So sometimes it's a chain of things. Sometimes something arises out of a root condition, one main thing. Sometimes many, many different things come together all at once to create something. If you're interested in causality, the Abhidhamma has more information than you could possibly imagine. But really, experientially, the main thing to understand is whatever is arising in the moment of mind and body isn't happening just because of nothing. It's happening because of various kinds of conditionality, of various kinds of karma, of various kinds of causes. And nothing exists independent of that. That's the main thing to remember. The specifics are less important. Let's see, Alberto. Please, Alessandra.
So the question is a practical one related to the practice. So as for the other categories, we could imagine the person like in front of us, and then address the Upekkha sentence. In this case, how to deal with ourselves? Like, should we project it inward, or should we think about an image of ourselves in front of us? How to do this?
Whatever works for you. For some people, it's just spending a little time at the very beginning, connecting with what is arising. Understanding that this is arising in a mind and body we call I, me, and mine. And then just repeating the phrase and letting it settle there. And coming back to direct experience of I, me, and mine right now as often as needed. So it could even be each breath, feeling and then repeating, feeling and then repeating. Yeah, grazie. Ulrika, please.
So I was wondering about the phrase to use in this category. Can I say I am owner of my actions, or is it better to say this person here is owner of its actions? So I have noticed in the first case there is more connection, but then I manifest this concept of I, me, and mine. And in the second case, there is more distance, but not such a good connection.
What I would say, Ulrika, is to just play with it. You want a balance of both. You want the connection, but also the space. I prefer Kamasaka because there's no I, me referred to at all in that, in the Pali, ownership of action. So maybe play with that as well and translating that into German, because ownership of action is just nature. So there may be too much space in that. So you can actually go back and forth as you need to keep the connection. But you don't want that, of course, you don't want, to fall into old habits of clinging. Practically what that looks like is in one sitting, try one phrase and see how that feels in experience, whether there's that balance of space and connection. And then in the next sitting, try another phrase. You're articulating one of the central challenges of this category, holding that paradox of there is a being here, but there's no one here, and finding the way to connect with the conventional being while also staying in the realm of wisdom.
Okay, thank you very much.
Grazie. Riccardo. And before you start, Riccardo, I would say to everybody, if you need to leave, it's time at this point. Continue with yourself today. If you find you're really struggling with this, experiment with all beings, with yourself included. So widening the lens if you need to. So if you need to leave, you may. And Riccardo, please.
It's about the sentence I'm using. So first I started with is in your life is related to conditions. And then you said it's better to take away the I, me, mine, you, and yours, and so on. So it was like is due to conditions. Is in life is due to conditions. While using the sentence in this way, so when there is this shift, I noticed that if before there was already just a vague perception which was only related to sensations about me and eventually the other person, shifting to the other phrase was just being with general sensations, let's say. So everything seems to be really vague, not without any particular definition. So what's about this sense of everything being so like not defined and vague? Is it fine, or is it related to the practice? What about it?
Yeah, you need to maintain connection. So if using, you can use a name, for example, may the Dalai Lama, or not may, the Dalai Lama is subject to causes and conditions and karma, or this being is due to causes, conditions, and karma. Finding a way to make that understanding quite specific and connected is really important. Okay, everybody. May you have a good day of practice. I'll see everybody in group C at 10:30 until later.